Get started, I think. I know there'll be a few more joining us as we go, but we've got only so much time, and we do have a bit of an agenda, so we're going to try and work through that. So to get us started, I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll kind of get going here. All right. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here today to our Central Sport input session. Christine, you're going to add those in, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Certainly, I thank everybody for joining us here today. This is, we've had an opportunity to talk to a few of the sport people along the way over the last couple of years, but this is really our first session where we try to bring the sport community as a whole together and to talk about a few opportunities, as well as share some information and most important, to get some input from everybody on some directions for the sport community going forward here in the city of Red Deer. I'm Scott Robinson. I'm the contract CEO for the Central Sport. And on us with us, helping us out today, is Christina Verticchio, who is our marketing and communications contract person for Central Sport. We also have some board of directors on the call today. Our chair, Al Furchuk, Doug Spicer, who is a director. I just saw Russ Willad, who's our vice chair, joined us here a minute ago. And we may have a few more joining us, board members, that is, as the call goes on here for a couple of points along the way. So with the session, I'll sort of jump to our agenda here. For today, we're going to talk a little bit about who Central Sport is. I know some of you for sure are aware of what our organization is, but there's some that may be still discovering us, and we're going to talk a little bit about who we are and what we're trying to do. One of our topics today is to talk a little bit about hosting sport events in Red Deer, and we'll dig into that piece a little bit, as well as we want to sort of from there talk a little bit about some of your needs as a sport community, what some of the things that you're facing and some of the challenges that you face as an organization, and helping us to understand what your needs might be so we can customize some programs and opportunities to support you. Christina will talk a little bit about our communications and our website, which is evolving into a really, really cool asset for the city. And she'll delve into that. And then finally, Laura Naldred, who's also one of our board of directors, will be joining us probably about halfway through here. And she's going to talk about sport volunteers and what we as Central Sport are going to be doing to support sport volunteers and organizations and events in the community going forward. So that's our agenda here today. And so with that, I'm going to get started by turning this over to Al Furchuk, our chair, to just give you a little bit more detail about who Central Sport is and what we're about and how we might be able to help the sport community. Al?
Thank you, Scotty. And thank you for each and every one of you joining us this afternoon. And it is a pleasure to share some information background on Central Sport. Initially, when back about 2017, 2018, when a group of individuals were hoping or attained a vision to host the Canada Winter Games, it became really apparent that we really didn't have a single spokes group that represented our Central Alberta region, Red Deer, in terms of advocating for the hosting opportunity. That was in contrast to most other cities in Alberta who were our competitors, who had some forms of sport councils. So that was where the plan originated. And in fact, that plan was part of our bid to the national body in Ottawa, that we would promote sport through a Central Sport organization. Our board that has met since then, I wanted to talk briefly about our vision. Our board that was formed in 2020 has emphasized throughout its deliberations that we feel there is a legacy of excellence in Central Alberta for hosting, and that's well known certainly within the province and even nationally, and that we want to put that foot forward in every opportunity that we take to host. The second key part of the vision is the term collaboration. And our feeling is that by sharing honestly, proactively, communicating challenges, that we can collaborate together to climb hills that as individuals, we don't have a hope in climbing. So I wanted to just emphasize that that's an expectation that anybody that joins Central Sport who interacts can expect us to live by those two key visionary statements. Now, with respect to the formation of Central Sport, while the Canada Games Board was planning for the Games, going back to 2017, we hosted workshops with key decision makers at the political level, at the business level, and at the sport level in January 2017 and again in October 2017. At the same time, we reviewed sport councils across Canada. That was a 2-year project. From that, we saw an opportunity in Central Alberta to be unique. And that led to the formation of input from those workshops to what are we call the 3 pillars. If we look at other sport councils, they certainly will have 2 or 3 of the pillars, but not all 3. And that's a bit of a challenge in a sense, but it's also a unique form of Central Sport. Scott had mentioned in his discussion our board. So late in 2019, there was a call for those that might be interested in serving on a board that would be separate from the Canada Games, but would be a board overseeing Central Sport. So in January 2020, and I believe the slide is in front of the individuals, our board was formed. And for basically 2 years, we've redid operational plans, then COVID, second wave, third wave, then we redid business plans, COVID, fourth wave. And I mention that in the sense that I have to give a lot of credit for our board. We met monthly, so it's basically been 24, 25 months of meetings, and we've had tremendous commitment from that board. Also, we will be at our annual general meeting, March 30th, adding 3 additional board members. And we are very pleased to have the professionalism and the sport development knowledge of each of those individuals. I wanted to give you a bit of an idea of the structure that we follow. Our structure is identified as a working board. That means that each board member will serve on at least 1, if not 2, working committees that will develop at a higher level planning and at sometimes grassroots planning, interacting with our community. And we will, for example, on the Sport Development Committee, we'll have a chance to speak further there. A volunteer committee, as Scott had mentioned, with Laura. I would also comment with respect to, on the right-hand side, the Stakeholder Advisory Council. We have interacted and sincerely hope to be interacting and working and planning closely with other sport-interested stakeholders within our community. And folks, that stakeholder group is so intense. This is just an outline of sort of the more obvious at this point in time. We will be identifying other organizations who may contact us, or we will identify them as we're going forward. As we look at our committees, we will go into this in some depth here in our interactions. So there in front of you, volunteer committee, the events and bidding committee, the sport development, and the revenue and sustainability committee. Sport development is a key one with many of our stakeholders, in the sense that if the health of our fundamental sport organizations and how they contribute to the health of our community, if that is not a primary focus, we would be limiting the scope of what we can all achieve. So once again, I'd like to thank the board, the patience of the board, and I would like to thank all of those who are participating this afternoon. And we sincerely would ask for frank, proactive feedback today so we can do a better job of collaborating with each other. Again, thank you once again for joining us. Scott, I will pass it back to you.
Sure. Thanks, Al. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to get a little bit engaged and have some dialogue. One of the things that we've been a part of, as some of you as well have been a part of, right from the post-Canada Games, was engagement around supporting major events in Alberta, or sorry, in Red Deer. And post-Canada Games, it was a consultant hired by the city to do a research report around what it would take, what a major event strategy would look like, and how that would be structured. And post that report, there's now being some work done by the city of Red Deer with Red Deer Tourism around trying to figure out the business plan for that strategy. So in that strategy, it really identified that Red Deer needs to establish this major event destination approach. In that, there's sort of two pillars that was identified in the consulting report. The first one being sport as one major focus for the strategy, and the second one was culture. Identified out of that report was the benefits of doing that really focus on some economic benefits to the city, and of course some social benefits as well. And as we can all think back to the Canada Games and what happened when the Canada Games was hosted, there certainly was lots of those benefits that we saw as part of the games, both infrastructure wise as well as economically in terms of impact from the games. And we've hosted many major events before that, of course, whether it be the Brier, the Scotties, the Major Junior Memorial Cup, etc. We've hosted World Juniors. We've had those events, not the recent World Juniors, of course, as much, but so those events come to the city, and the city, there's a lot of benefits to hosting them. Through the once that report was presented and was understood that this is a path that the city wanted to go down, Tourism Red Deer now has been identified as a group that can lead this process from a business plan point of view, in supporting major bids and collaborating with stakeholders to come to the table and look at this long term in terms of how we actually coordinate our efforts. One of the things we learned from the Canada Games, as Al mentioned, was that we're pretty siloed, and we're pretty as a community. There's a lot of different players, but not necessarily all pulling in the same direction, and that made it a little bit more challenging to initially bid on the event primarily, and it made it a little bit challenging in terms of organizing the event and working with all stakeholders as we were going through the planning process. And so identified through that major event strategy is this becomes a way to ensure that we don't have those struggles, and we can be putting our best foot forward as a community going after various events over time. So there's been some consultation sessions. Some of you have been a part of those. The Red Deer Tourism, through a consultant, is leading around trying to identify those pieces that we need to put in place from a business plan point of view to make this strategy come alive. And today we have a few of the members from Red Deer Tourism, Renee and Nancy, on the call, and Bree Fitzpatrick, and I think Michelle's on the call as well, yes, who are part of that, leading that process. And one of the reasons we wanted to have this session is to talk a bit about, from the sport community, what impacts a major event strategy has on you as a sport, and what do you hope to gain out of having that. Although some sport groups had a chance to to comment through the initial process set up by Red Deer Tourism. We know that not all had that chance, and so we wanted to make sure we had some dialogue around that. So we're going to be talking about that, and we also wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about events that would be considered not major events, events that are more provincial or regional in nature that you may be hosting as a sport or want to host as a sport in Red Deer, and what are some of the things that are important from your perspective, or some of the barriers you may have or opportunities in doing that. So that's really what we're going to do. So we have 2 questions, and we're going to throw you into breakout rooms here. Each room will have a moderator, and we'll walk you through these questions. And this is your opportunity, no matter who you represent here, for you to share your thoughts and ideas. And we really encourage our partners in Tourism Red Deer, the City of Red Deer, to be a part of this discussion as well. Don't sit on the sidelines and be a fly in the wall. You can certainly contribute your thoughts. Our first question is going to be around what is the most important benefit to the sports sector from hosting major events? And I really want you to think about this. Sometimes it's not obvious. Some events come to the city and they're big events or very profile events, but don't necessarily have a clear connection to the sport community in Red Deer. And that's something to think about. Other events might be really engaged and require the sport community to be very active, whether it be from a volunteer perspective or a sport development perspective. So we want you to think about that question. Our second question is more around those events that you host in the city, and what are those opportunities that you see and the strengths that we have as a city in hosting events, but what are some of the challenges and or the threats or the issues that you faced in hosting events? Maybe you don't host events because you're worried about certain things or don't feel you have certain things in place to do that. So those are our 2 questions that we're asking you in the breakout room. We got about 15 minutes to discuss them. And once we come out of the breakout room, we'll have a chance to share quickly a little bit about what everybody heard in their room. And of course, we'll be recording this information along the way. So with that, I would like Christina.
Sure. So I set up the 3 breakout rooms. So you'll be called to join a breakout room. So when a call to action pops up on your screen, if you can just click join, you'll be assigned in either breakout room 1, 2, or 3. So Doug is leading the moderating in breakout room 1. Scott's leading the moderating in breakout room 2. And I'm leading the moderating in breakout room 3. So I'm going to just set that timer to 15 minutes, and then we will see you in the breakout rooms in.
Not enough time.
The agenda, we had 30 minutes. I'm not sure why it was cut to 15.
Yeah.
2:45.
You're right. We did have more time on that. We kind of, I think we kind of anticipated more time on the front end. So we left it at 15, but let's, sorry about that for those that may have got cut off on there. I think, Christina, what we'll do is we'll just keep the conversation going as the broad group. Is everybody back here? I don't see. How come some groups aren't, or are they? Oh, maybe they are. You can turn your cameras on and your microphones on. They automatically go off when you come out of the breakout room in this system. There we go. All right. Where's Barb from soccer?
My name's Joan from soccer.
Sorry about that, Joan.
No, that's okay.
Okay, you were in mid-sentence as we got cut off there. So we were talking about the challenges of hosting regional, local events, and you were about to kind of share your thoughts. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, one thought, we had 106 teams coming to Red Deer. It was February of 2018 or 19. And I did reach out to Tourism Red Deer, who were great. They gave me a map of the city and some information we could give to teams. But then I asked about, if there were hotel deals, or how do you let restaurants know that 106 teams are descending on the city so they can make sure they have maybe extra staffing? And they said, well, there's nothing in place for that. And so I had people, complaining that gee, we went to Booster Juice and we had to wait 40 minutes because they didn't have enough staff. And, you know, I'm not blaming Booster Juice. It was just, that's just a, you know, something I thought, how do you connect the dots to the community, which is maybe the one advantage of Central Sport.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, is our community aware of some of these big events? When you have big numbers, you have a lot of teams and athletes coming to the city, and maybe it's just an invitational event. I know we have some big cross-country events annually, and you know, soccer and some of those team sport events where there's lots of individual athletes or team athletes coming. How do we make sure that the community is aware of these so that they can prepare themselves if they're a business that might need to receive those? So that's a good reflection. Okay, I don't know where you guys ended up, probably like us, not very far. Jerry, my apology, you're right. We kind of had more time than we thought. We didn't plan as much as we should have in the breakout rooms. So with that though, let's keep the dialogue going. Maybe anybody else want to share a thing that has not shared in your group about hosting your organization, hosting events, whether it be a provincial championship or regional and invitational? What are some of the challenges or some of the opportunities that you see for your club or your sport doing that? Who else wants to share something?
I can speak up. It's Roy here. I only just got on. Didn't have Google, so it took me half an hour to figure this out. So,
all right, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in with the Masters Swim Club.
Okay.
Our biggest challenge is I'm trying to hold a swim meet, but I can't get pool time. So, you know, we have not pools meet. So it's going to be impossible to meet.
So basically facility availability and capacity to host.
Yeah.
Anybody else sort of have that issue in terms of capacity or availability of facilities?
Certainly the Red Deer Skating Club spoke to that in our group, Scotty.
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah, Dallas here with Red Deer Minor Hockey. We have the same challenges here. Like our ice contracts run out usually around the 23rd of March. We'd like to host a lot more provincial events, but we don't have any ice. We're hosting a provincial tournament this weekend. We're actually hosting it in Ponoka because that's the only place we could get ice. So that would be one thing we'd like to do more. If we had greater access to ice, we'd host more provincial tournaments, which typically are late March, or we'd also host several more tournaments throughout the hockey season in general, be it at whatever level or division we'd like to. We just don't have the ice available to host a lot.
And that's again I think that's coming from the group, one of the major users of the ice. There's lots of users of ice, obviously in the city of Red Deer beyond hockey. There's ringette, there's figure skating, there's pond hockey. There's lots of groups that are using it, different individual sports. And so, even though there is some ice available, obviously there's some good facilities in Red Deer. It doesn't, because we've got such great groups that have a lot of capacity, we may not necessarily be able to host more events because of that. Capacity isn't enough to be able to do those types of things. So good reflection. All right. Any other points anybody wanted to share that has not had a chance yet?
Any opportunities or strengths? Like what makes it easy for you to have a tournament in Red Deer?
Nobody likes to talk about the positive things. Come on, Christina.
Well, Melanie, do you want to go?
Yeah, we host, as I mentioned earlier in our breakout, we're about the only group in the city that it's a multi-sport group with 13 sports. So we'll quite often host 3 or 4 or 5 provincial tournaments in a year, whether it's swimming or floor hockey or curling or bowling. And for those, we're really quite self-sufficient. We have good facilities. We have good support. We've hosted the provincials. That's a little more difficult. But when it comes to hosting, say, a national competition for Special Olympics. And you have all of these different sports that you have to find facilities for, volunteers for, funding for. That's above and beyond what we could do as a local sport organization. It would have to be done similar to the Canada Winter Games. It would have to be a community group putting in a bid on behalf of the city. It'd have to be a community group that ran the games. So that is a bit of a challenge for us in terms of going anything further than a provincial games.
Right. Good. Okay. Anybody host an event annually in Red Deer as a sport, and you want to share anything that is either something that's great about Red Deer in doing that, or something that is a challenge every year?
Brian Davies here.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah, I'm with Parkland Cross Country Ski Club,
Right.
and we generally hold Alberta Cup races every winter, and we have not too much issues with Riverbend or the city or whatever. But this year, we made sure that one of our executive went to businesses, particularly because of the COVID this year. There wasn't full services at Riverbend. So we had went and canvassed all of the food outlet businesses in New Clearview area, North Clearview or whatever it's called. And basically they gave us coupons, and I don't know how they fared money wise, but we had a lot of coupons that we could give out to the athletes and their entourage, so that they could get a little bit of a break on the food, but it let the businesses know that there was going to be some business coming that way, so that they could be a bit prepared for it. Other than that, snow is our problem, and we can't deal with that here at this time.
Yeah, and probably weeks later we did get some snow after your event.
Well,
yeah.
I'll chime in on that one too, because I was there. I was doing the announcing for that competition as well, at least part of it, and they had a crew who put in just ridiculous hours and were absolutely about the most dedicated group of people that you'll ever see, moving snow by the truckload onto the course to make, and then grooming it and going well into the night and starting early in the morning and all of that. So if you want to know what it takes to run a competition under adverse conditions, talk to any of those folks. It was, and I know there were a number of very, very positive comments from some of the competing visiting clubs about the quality of the course, in spite of the fact that there was not very much snow at the time. Of course, it was like 36 hours later that we got a nice big dump of snow, but
Yeah.
isn't that how it goes?
Yeah, for sure. That's always a challenge.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
just
Go
So
ahead.
Joan from Red Deer Soccer has her hand up.
Okay.
Hi. So when you talked about, opportunities or fun, it really is, it's fun. You hold events for the athletes. We've had a team from Yellowknife once come down to attend our soccer tournament. We have one in July, third weekend in July for 20, 30 years. Same, the Family Day tournament, Christina knows, for years and years and years. So, you do it for the athletes. They really enjoy playing teams that they normally don't play. So that's why you do it. It's all for the kids.
Right on.
Awesome. Okay, great feedback.
Scotty,
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
just wanted to make a comment relating to the facilities. It's a good reminder to hear the comments about limited access. And I think that's a role that we need to discuss strategically as sport groups and a central voice in terms of sport groups. I think such things as lack of ice because plants shut down a certain date in April. If we had opportunities to enhance the economic growth of the city, a voice could be speaking to decision makers strategically about planning, say, lengthening the seasons, maybe Christmas time. And with some of the new facilities we have, it's probably, just in a summary, it is a good time to strategically look at booking, hosting, some form of coordinated strategic plan.
Right.
But it was good to hear that from a variety of sport groups, indoor, outdoor, winter, summer. That's good input to hear, gang. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, very good. Okay, we're going to move on to our next topic, and we're going to have Doug Spicer, one of our directors, kind of speak to this a little. It really extends a little bit beyond just hosting events. It's more about your sport organization as a whole, and what kinds of things that an organization like Central Sport might be able to help you with. So I'm going to hand it over to Doug. And we've got a couple questions here, Doug, that we can sort of tease people with and maybe get some feedback.
Sure. Yeah, so we've talked at length over the last few months with Scott sort of leading the discussion and the rest of the board contributing a bit and talking about, okay, so one of our main ideas that we have been building this organization on is connecting with sport organizations and collaborating with them, and something that's going to certainly help us to do that is more information from those sport groups. And so we kind of look at it as you people will have some issues, some hurdles, some barriers, that sort of thing. What are some of those things in terms of your sport? Just in general, this is now not necessarily an event hosting question. It's much more broad ranging than that. And then if you have some pains, how can we offer some pain relief? What are some of the things that you feel like maybe you can ask a centralized voice to advocate for on your behalf, for example? So I guess with that, I'll just open it up to anyone's comments, and I think Christina is going to be recording, writing down the responses as well. Again, it's all being recorded, so we'll take that back to the board level and
Bowling.
jump in and see what we can do.
So what sucks as a sport club? What's hard? What is it that you need to overcome? Raise someone boxing raised their hand. Go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, just Rob Carcel here. I'm just making some notes of. I'd like to reconfirm some of the events that's happened in Canada Winter Games here throughout all the years, numerous years. And one of them was I call it a 3-ring circus, where we had the 3 different events. They were all in the given time. Now, where I went from there was, if we have facilities, and I think our last get-together meeting referred to, of course, facilities that we're not utilizing 7/24. Their facilities, of course, they were maintaining the heat, the electricity, everything else like this. If we could share some of those facilities with other sports, which of course have a different training time, that's what I'm really looking for. Yeah. Okay, we're all point blank. Of course, what we were talking about a rugby facility, an enormous facility, perfection in its best. But is it being utilized and maybe could be used by boxing? Well, of course not, just because of its location, unfortunately. But what I'm saying is, if we could share those costs of a facility that is that could be utilized more of a 7/24. This is just a brainstorming idea and thought, of course. And of course, my biggest scenario is trying to maintain something 7/24, the cost of it, which which we cannot do nowadays. We're just not making it.
Right. Yeah. Good perspective. I think, how better can we share facilities and minimize the cost for one sport necessarily? Some sports, have to, it's more challenging to find facilities than others. Others, it's easier, but that's a good reflection. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts? What does your sport organization need to be successful? Go ahead, Melanie, I think.
Hi, I'm with the Red Deer Titans.
Okay.
I said earlier, we have kind of a smaller board, and we're all volunteer based, and it tend to have a lot of board turnover too. So it's kind of like reinventing the wheel every time somebody new comes into the board. So I think, the board resources governance would really help. Our volunteer base is small but mighty, and I find when we have such a short season, like our kids only run May, June, and then the older ones are May, June, July, and some are June, July, August. But we try to get a lot done in the summer. So people with so much going on, there's a lot of burnout too. So that would be our biggest struggle. Funding and grant applications, we just finally attacked a few months ago because we are planning our 50th anniversary this year. So could have used you guys a few months ago, but that's the main one. And then parking. We have no parking, but we do love to share our facility with other sports when we can. But we have lost some interest because of the parking.
Thank you very much. Some good ones. Volunteers, governance, grant applications. How do we fill those out? What's the strategy and the best practices around that? By the way, congratulations on your 50th anniversary. That's pretty awesome. Parking, interesting. Who knows? Maybe there's some solution certainly for major events. There could be some solutions, but for day-to-day use, but who knows? Maybe we can have a discussion with Red Deer County or something about some solutions around that. Who knows? But thank you for sharing. Red Deer, I think Red Deer Skating Club, it looks like, has a hand up.
Just one thought I was having is we really missed the activity guide. It was delivered to each person's home, and it had a list of all the activities that were coming up in that quarter or third of the year. And I know I received a lot of feedback from our customers that's where they found us in. So we're really missing that. I know the city of Red Deer has ad listings right on the website, which we really appreciate, but I'm not sure if there's something that Central Sport can do in helping all the different sports and user groups to get their names out to the community members, like for all sport, right? So when people are looking what sporting opportunity is available for my child, what can we participate in? You might not think skating, especially in the summer or spring, and yet we have programs. So just I'm not sure, just putting out the question, if there's an opportunity for somehow with your organization to reach each person in their home. We're trying to do a big social media push getting out there, but you have to somehow be connected with people for people to see your stuff. So that's one thing that we'd like.
So specifically, Patty, it's more of that like printed component. Like now that the activity guide is completely digital. I mean, people still, that information is still available, but it's not that tangible item that's delivered in your mailbox.
Yeah, I know the world's going away from that kind of stuff, but really when a mom is sitting at home at night or the family is having supper together and they're looking and thinking, what should we do? Having that piece of paper in their home was a lot different than them, happening to come on Facebook or Instagram up with see the Red Deer Skating Club. I know advertising in the paper or in the radio, but you have to catch the person at the right time. The activity guide for us was most excellent because every home in Red Deer received one, and everybody knew there was going to be activities in there, and everybody leafed through it, and they were available at all the facilities. It was just ideal. And I know the city isn't going to do it, so I'm just looking for other ways to get our names into the homes of all the little people that need to learn how to skate.
Well, that's really good feedback. You've got a champion in Christina, because she's got a couple little ones and she's saying the same thing. Where do we find, if we don't know where to look, where would we find? You'd have to go to every individual website and not even know what's out there. So that's a very good point. When she's actually going to talk about that later. Let's go, Nick, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you. Just referring back to what Patty was saying about the sport guide. I'm against it. I find it's antiquated like a phone book, and there's no tangible return or there's no way to quantify what your investment is getting you. Whereas everything in an online basis provides you with that data. The problem with anything online is that, me included, is I'm not an expert in how to advertise properly online so that we are getting the clicks and driving those clicks directly to our website or to your website or to whatever. I think something that maybe Central Sport can do is some social media advertising training, and maybe we can bring in an expert to really show us how to maximize those sponsored ads that we have on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else. That's where I would like to see things grow.
Okay, excellent. Very good feedback. Again, I think Christina will speak a little bit to that. Jerry, very good. Thank you.
Getting back to Rob's comment about sharing facilities, it's an excellent one. Right now, we are sharing the facility of the Red Deer Fencing Club, where we hold our rhythmic gymnastics program there. But whether or not it's possible to put together some kind of a directory through Central Sport of organizations that are willing to share their space, whether they rent it or own it. It's very costly at times to maintain something on an ongoing basis, and there may be opportunities for sharing, but how do we find out who that is? And that might be an opportunity on your website or in other ways to have a listing of those types of facilities that could be shared. The other issue that's been around for a while is the use of school. We do have a couple of schools that we use in the Red Deer Catholic system. It's more and more difficult all the time to get into schools because they have their own programs, or else, unfortunately, sometimes they just don't want you to use their schools. Used to be, those of you who go back a long time like I do, we had community schools, and that was their mandate, was to open their doors to community groups. That's sort of gone by the wayside. So I think there needs to be some more work done in working with the school districts for availability of their facilities, as well as, I say, putting together this directory of shared facilities.
Great, good comment.
And I think some of the challenge there, Jerry, is the fact that you think in modern times, if you will, in today's day and age, it's often an insurance issue, and having to hire supervisors to be on site because apparently we can't trust the organizers to to watch their own. I mean, there's just a number of issues.
I realize that, Doug, and we do use a couple of schools, and we pay for the schools, and we pay for the host, and we have our insurance through our national body that we give to the schools in the city. And yeah, those are drawbacks for organizations that may not have that capability. But the fact that the facilities aren't available in the first place, because sometimes it's just the principal doesn't want you in their school. It's a challenge to find spaces for certain programs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good point. Okay, our Red Deer Boxing Club again. Got a comment?
Yeah, I just Jerry, I just like to reconfirm exactly how our club started over 30 years ago, and that was within a school. The city came forth and offered up carry out equipment. That's where things can start, and really, be it ancient and or not, I still think that is a feasible way of getting some of the sports even initiated into the Central Alberta, which aren't at this exact moment. The issue about insurance, I think it was Doug maybe brought that up. The insurance, I'll just reiterate, it's everything needs millions, if not $2 or $3 million insurance coverages. We think that it's absolutely ridiculous, and we think it's ridiculous going into malls to advertise, and they're asking the same things, the big major malls. So before you can even put up your little bench to hand out pamphlets and stuff, that is very, very difficult. Of course, you go into the DAW centers and other centers, of course, for nothing. Is the only way of advertising and getting yourself out there. It sure isn't going to the malls or anything else like this. It's just an impossibility is how we look at it. Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Joan.
Right. So the question before this meeting, the question I had was, how can Central Sport support her organization? That was, it's what I wanted to find an answer to that question with the meeting today. So, and the suggestions of, communications or volunteers, or especially funding grant applications, those are what I see would be very beneficial. Red Deer Soccer's in the process of buying a turf field that's going to be put in at the Westerner, that new building. I'm sorry, I don't know what the new building's called at the Westerner. So it's big money. And, filling out these grants are, wow, they're quite intimidating and take a lot of work when you're already, staff working full out. It's hard to, for one thing, fill them out properly, and just to find the time to do it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good reflection. And to answer your question, yeah, we're in the process of, creating those services that make sense for the sport community, and that's why we're asking these questions and trying to understand what your pains are, and how we can create a solution to help you with those pains. And so that's very helpful to share that. Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. Any other comments from anybody on this particular topic? All right, some good feedback. I like, I think on the surface there is some things that we're doing right now that may be of help, and one of them Christine is going to talk about here in a minute when we talk about what we're trying to do from a communications and connectivity point of view. And then certainly from a volunteer point of view, Laura Naldred, who just joined us as she's coming in. Laura will, you get a chance to breathe, Laura. You're not on tap yet, but Laura's going to be talking a little bit about where we're going with regards to a volunteer support program for the sports sector in Red Deer. So before we get to Laura, I'd like Christina to...
Scotty?
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Just before we leave to Christina, the Red Deer Soccer question about what we can do for you. Entirely, we want you to feel comfortable coming to us and explaining some of your challenges. As we organize our operational plan, which has been revised like 3 times, but for example, your comments on grant writing, the comments on governance, that was good for us to hear that, to re-emphasize that there's some really basics that volunteers struggle with. And I think we can assist with that in relatively short order. So that's going to come to our board as a re-emphasis after this input today, because we want our sports to develop. So good comments, and I encourage everyone to contact us with emails or going forward. If you've got a question like that, don't hesitate to bring it to our attention. Thanks for letting me interrupt, Scott. Thank you.
Always welcome to have the chair interrupt. Never a problem. Okay. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Christina here to talk a little bit about not just our website, but our communications and what we're trying to do to help the sport community and how you can help us as well So Christina, take over.
Sure. Can you just skip to the next slide, please?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Thanks. So in November 2021, we launched like our brand and website. So we launched centralsport.ca. At that time, we had reached out to the local sport community and asked them to, if they wanted to join our free sport directory, to provide us their information. So when we launched the site in November, we started off with about, say, 25 local sport organizations with their information. At that same time, we launched an event calendar on the site and started doing a monthly newsletter in December. And we launched our social media channels. We're on Facebook and on Twitter. So since then, we've enhanced our website a bit to also include a facility directory and enhanced the sport features to filter differently than we had previously. So you would be able to now filter by sport, filter by community. Right now, we only have like Red Deer County based sports, but we are envisioning this to build to be a Central Alberta hub for sport. And by age, as Scott mentioned, like I have like an almost 2-year-old, and like I'm just like an overeager parent, but I'm like, what can I put him in? And Joan, I know I can't put him in soccer because he's a 2000 baby or 2020 baby, not a 2019 baby. But so just we wanted to make it easy so that, yeah, as you're looking for experiences, whether you're a parent or you're an adult wondering what is out there for recreation opportunities, we wanted this to be that hub to connect sports with participants using the website. And then we've launched the facility directory recently. So that's also, we want to highlight the facilities that are in the community. So I know we have Red Deer Titans on the site on the sport, but we could add the fields also on the facility directory to help you promote that is a bookable venue for others to utilize and get the word out that there are these great amenities in the community. So the facility portion of the site is definitely still a bit more under developed at this point, and we're working to get more facilities to sign up on that. And again, with the sport and the facility directory, as a facility owner or a local sport organization, you can go in and you create your profile on the site. You put in the information you want to have, because part of what we recognized when we were building the site or just even launching lots of elements with Central Sport is that there's a lot of discrepancy between kind of resources, staffing, volunteer with sports. So some sports have like a full complement of staff and an army of volunteers, and other sports are just getting started, or like Melanie mentioned with Red Deer Titans, that they're kind of consistently having some like board turnover. So they're starting from scratch on a regular basis. So we wanted to go into this to make the website for when you do have your sport on there as customizable to where you're at, so that we can get the word out about your sport without you feeling like pressure to have like a website and this and that. We just wanted to make it a portal where people can go and find information about your sport, and then they connect with you to register or to learn more. We have an event calendar that's also a free service where you could put on there any of your upcoming tournaments. The only kind of criteria really we have with the event calendar is that it should be open to viewers, like spectators. And so we welcome if you have upcoming tournaments and spectators are welcome. Please send them in through our event calendar on centralsport.ca. We've launched a monthly newsletter. So if you have items that you're recruiting for, or you want to promote, if you have fundraisers, please feel free to send those to us. We publish in the middle of the month, every month, and we do send like an email out to the members on our directory at this point to ask them if they have any stories to share. And so the Titans, Melanie, I feel like I'm talking about you a lot today, but Norm from the Red Deer Titans is always great at sending us information, and so we're happy to include it because we want to help you promote your items as best as we can. And then we also have Facebook and Twitter accounts where we are always looking to share your information, because we want to make like I mentioned a few times, a hub. So our website's a hub, our social media is a hub, our newsletter is a hub. We want to, the more that you can share with us and contribute, we're happy to amplify. Like that's really what we can do in terms of a marketing and communications perspective. Just keeping in mind that we're also just building our channels right now. So everything for us is new. We're wanting to see like what working with the local sport organizations and facilities, what doesn't, but wanting to really just play a part in getting the word out on the different opportunities that are available for recreation in and around Red Deer. And any like ideas that you have, questions, please feel free to email us at info@centralsport.ca. A number of you on the call already are on our sport directory, but there are a few that aren't. And we open that conversation. If you have any questions about the directory, how it works, if you need a tutorial just in terms of how to sign up, like please don't hesitate to reach out and we'll get you signed up. And that's really all I have to share just about kind of the website and our marketing communications channels as they exist right now. And it was a great conversation just about how we can help, like hearing from Patty. I know she had to leave, but just, maybe some sports are looking for like, how can we cost effectively do something that's print and delivered to houses, and maybe that's a conversation that we can continue to have. And maybe we look at partnering with the Red Deer Advocate to get something delivered. Who knows? There's lots of opportunities. We just want to know, like, what are your pinch points? What do you need help with? And then we can, be solution focused and figure out how does that work within our pillars and how can we help you?
Right.
Yeah. But any questions for me in terms of how we can help you amplify?
It's Joan from Red Deer Soccer. I just, when we get this coming winter or this coming October, our indoor season, the turf will be in place. And when you mentioned, we can sublease it. So we're going to have some field space at other user groups. So, your sport and facility director, I think would be a great benefit to let, local sporting organizations know that we can, that they could rent some space, at the Westerner. I mean, it's beautiful inside from haven't been inside, but they say there's a viewing area up on top. Like they're just really excited to, have our competitive teams playing inside the Westerner. And by the way, Christina, your child will be old enough for indoor.
I know. I'm already waiting, Joan. I've already told Scott, I'm like, my kid is good. He's not even 2, but I can see that he's going to be
World Cup caliber.
Yeah.
We have a blog that speaks to that on our website right now, actually, about the importance of mass participation at the earliest levels. So, well, thanks, Joan. Any other questions for Christina right now? Okay, I want to point out a couple things just to add to Christina. First of all, this website is designed for you. It is designed for you to share your information based on your club's motivation, based on what you want to see. We are just the conduit to share that collectively. And when you think about it, if you're someone from outside of Red Deer, or you're somebody in Red Deer who doesn't know what's, as Christina mentioned, sports to look for or go to, this is going to become the place to find everything. And when they find a sport they're interested in, or an activity, or they're curious, they're going to click onto your information and, perhaps your websites or your Facebook page or whatever it is that you've put on there. And so that this is then constantly being updated by you in terms of current information, current contacts, all that kind of stuff. It's really designed with you in mind. And so I really want to emphasize that, but it's only as good as the information you put on it. And so it really is imperative that over time here, your club or your sport look to get your information on the site so that it's available for everybody. I think we're going to look, and we're hearing some great things, writing tons of notes, some great ideas on how we can amplify what you're doing and promote what you're doing as a sport. We need to, fill in that vacuum as a sport community to make sure that stuff is happening, whether it be in print or whether it be digitally. And so some great feedback. The last thing I would say is sign up for our newsletter. Go on the website, click on the newsletter and sign up for it. Put your email address in there, because that's where you're going to hear about everything that we're doing and opportunities where we want to bring groups together or share information, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, with that, good timing. Al, is there anything else you want to jump in on?
Oh, speaker's not on now.
Oh, you're muted, Al.
Do that to me. With respect to the website, when the board met with the website designers and Christina, the number one thing we said, we don't want this to be complicated. We want this to be, people can go on and navigate the site easily. So I would encourage those of you that haven't registered or would like to put more on, please do so. And I found the navigation that you set up, Christina, was easy for me, and that was a huge accomplishment for you. Okay, anyway, just encourage also the sport groups to talk to some of your friends in other sports from what you've heard and learned today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. We are going to move on to our next section, our volunteer support for your sport event. And I'm going to introduce you to Laura Naldred, who is one of our directors on our board. And yes, Laura, I will advance the slides for you. You just let me know when you need to do that. So we're going to let Laura take over right now. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. I apologize if I do repeat anything, as I joined a little bit late. But yeah, I'm here today to talk about what we've been developing as it relates to volunteer support for your sport event. So Scott, you can move forward. So a couple of things that I wanted to accomplish today was to share with you the things that are underway, some being built, some still under development, and also to share things that we've been hearing, the feedback upon which we are developing this sort of branch of our services. And once I've kind of shared all of this with everyone, we'll pause and have a chance to hear from you. Does this resonate? Does it reflect things that as a club, as an organization that you need? And what other things are we missing that we need to capture in order to effectively build this program and these services to meet your needs? So first, what I want to talk about is the development of the full cycle volunteer management, looking at tools, templates, and project plans. So we know that events, clubs, they don't happen without volunteers. They really are sort of that heartbeat that we need to keep trained and supplied in organizations to keep it going. And that's not easy. That does take a lot of heavy lifting, and there's a lot of components to doing it effectively. So what we've been working on is having tools and templates that can be customized, whether an event is large or it's small. So what I've got listed here are just the various aspects of the volunteer cycle. So whether that's partnering with your organization to look at your workforce, your volunteer needs, be that for an event or your board, where are those gaps, and developing a strategy on how to fulfill that. It looks at recruitment tools. So whether, that's developing where can this be posted within the community, postings, even just trying to identify what roles are needed. What does selection look like? And then assigning volunteers to the roles that you've identified. We've got tools and templates for volunteer orientation, volunteer training that are very extensive, tools to assist with scheduling, and best practices around communication and volunteer recognition. So it really is looking at that full cycle of volunteer management and ensuring that we can support organizations in terms of effectively managing their volunteer pool. And like I said, it is customizable to fit events of all size. Not every event is going to need all of these components. Some will be simpler, and some, like a games, multi-sport games, are going to need something that's more extensive. So we're building that, list of tools that can sort of, be customized, sort of that cafeteria style, to meet what's needed. Scott, do you want to move forward?
Yep.
The other aspect that we've been focusing on is identifying the volunteer channels and networks that are going to help meet needs within the community. We know we have really committed, dedicated people here in Red Deer and in the Central Alberta area. It's how do we best work together to tap into this talent? So the streams that we've identified currently, one is, at this point, we're calling it an elite volunteer team. But the idea is recruiting volunteers into priority roles and ensuring that we can connect these volunteers when the need arises across all the different sports. So I've listed a few examples here. This is based on feedback and experience, but some of them would be, for example, event photographers. If any of you have been at a tournament or a race or a meet where, it's like, everybody pull out your camera, take some pictures. We want to capture this greatness that's happening, but sometimes that's a gap. Developing a pool of photographers who are trained, we collectively know how to approach this, can make for being able to highlight that for the club, also, for the region, to show all the good things that are happening. I've got the STEAM Pro volunteers listed here, the economic impact of events, having a pool of trained, capable volunteers who can help events conduct that, so we can highlight the economic impact of these events for the community. And I won't go through all of them. I've listed some as an example, but where, having a pool and really recruiting to this team in a priority order, so that if organizations are having gaps, we can connect, right? That available, talented, committed group with those opportunities. And, not to go too far down, but, we want to make it something that is prestigious in the community. You think about some of the volunteer programs in Calgary, the white hat volunteers at the airport. It's a point of pride to be a part of that, and finding ways to recognize and reward that level of commitment for those team members. The other aspect, the other channel, is about the group volunteering network, right? Lots of organizations, be it businesses, schools, churches, they like to have those opportunities to volunteer together. It's a great team building experience. I worked with the 2019 Canada Winter Games as part of that volunteer team. And, we were approached a lot with like, hey, we'd like to do something together. And so we envisioned the ability to have those conversations on behalf of sport in the community. And then as needs arise, make those connections. So, if you need 10 more volunteers and, we've got a group that is eager to do something, we can connect that. But we're fostering those relationships on an ongoing basis so that they're ready when the need arises. And then the third channel that we're looking at is that general volunteer program. So building up again, whether that's a database of volunteers who are really interested in sport events, but being able to supplement the recruitment efforts from the sports for the various different needs that they have. And just really being able to support you finding quality, committed individuals to meet your volunteer needs. So Scott, if you want to advance. So this slide really, what it highlights is based on the feedback we've received to date, but also some studies that have been done in the sports sector relative to volunteer challenges and needs. So this captures some of what other sport organizations through those studies have said that they have challenges with. So that's, not enough volunteers to do the work. or also, not carrying through on their commitments, needing assistance promoting their volunteer needs to the community. So again, just another, outreach channel to try and connect with volunteers. For clubs that are looking to grow, not having that base of volunteers where they feel confident enough to go after that growth, right? Perhaps you've hosted events and barely gotten by with some volunteers, so it seems intimidating to take on something bigger. So, having that amount of volunteers or confidence that you can get them to host something. Getting qualified and quality volunteers. So whether that's for specialized roles on the board or coaching, having access to qualified and quality. And, something that can be observed is sometimes it's the same people, volunteering for the different events. And so how do we replenish that pool, recruiting younger volunteers from different sectors to really build on the group that we have in this community, to have a more robust and sustainable group of volunteers. So also the organizations noted that it'd be great to have guidelines, tips, and best practices on volunteer recruitment, retention, selection that they can choose from based on what they need, and samples or templates and organizational documents. So before we kind of open the floor to see, do these challenges resonate with you? Are these needs that your club has, your organization has? Are there others? Our objective really is, we want to help support the different organizations in their wide variety of volunteer needs, whether that's, a one-day race or a board member. It can be quite broad what you need from a volunteer standpoint. But we also think that approaching it in this way can help to highlight why it's a benefit to host events in Central Alberta. We can demonstrate that, we have talented, trained, and committed volunteers that can, definitely make us more appealing when it comes to whether it's the bid process for larger events or just demonstrating that we're able to fulfill that need in the community. And I guess also just, volunteering is a very rewarding process. So it's just a pillar of having a healthy community. So contributing to that overall. So that was basically what I wanted to share before opening up the floor to the group in terms of whether, the areas that we're developing continue to align with your needs, and if these challenges also align, and what are other challenges that you have.
Okay, so that's the question. Anybody have anything to share or ask? Go ahead, Jerry.
So it looks like Jerry.
Hi, Laura. A lot of the information you've just given us, and it's great information, but it's regarding events. I don't know about none of the other sporting groups, and ours, particularly, as they say in Special Olympics, and you volunteered with us, is finding volunteers for our ongoing day-to-day programs. When you run 13 sports, you need 13 different types of volunteers. It's a big challenge. Can you speak to that and what Central Sport might be able to offer in terms of finding, recruiting? We can do the training, but finding, recruiting volunteers for ongoing programs, weekly programs.
I guess Laura's having a hard time hearing. Can you hear me, Laura?
Sorry, Scott, I've lost audio here.
Oh, geez. That's weird.
Okay.
Well, she'll work on that. Maybe Christina, maybe you can, in the chat room, can you send Laura a note? Wherever Christina is. Okay, just 1 second.
I can send Laura a note.
Okay, just do that.
I'm gonna disconnect and try and come back. I don't have any audio.
That's weird. Okay, I think Jerry, just to answer your question in a more broadly, Laura might be a little more specific, but yeah, the answer is yes. At the end of the day, we understand that different clubs have different needs. It's not all event based. One of the reasons why we focused a little bit on events here is just the nature that events often require an organization to bring more people to the table than what they normally would operate under in some cases. But we also see, as when Laura talked about the general program volunteers, as having a pool of people that want to be involved in sport programs, that we would meet with you, determine what your needs would be, and then be able to promote that to a network of volunteers that have put their hand up and said, yeah, we want to be involved in sport, and try to make that connection between those that want to be involved and those where the needs might be. So I would say that's in a general sense how we see this happening. We're excited about starting to be able to meet some of those needs that you may have or anybody else may have. So good reflection. And I'm going to say that that's something along the lines of what we're hoping to do for sure.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. And of course, we have the added issue of people that want to work with individuals with an intellectual disability.
Right.
Not everybody feels that that's their area of expertise or their area of interest. So
right.
We do have that extra challenge as well.
Yeah, for sure. That there's no doubt. So that's meeting the right people to the need. Absolutely. See if Laura's going to get back on. Any other thoughts around what we're planning, whether it makes sense or whether there's something that's missing? Doug, you want to make a comment? Go ahead.
I was just going to say to Jerry, one of the connections that I'm kind of seeing as a possibility here is, and again, it may be through your group's link on our website, if you have an indicator to any potential volunteers in those kinds of roles you're talking about, of supports that may be in place. For example, if someone's kind of a little bit hesitant because they're not sure, as you said, that they can deal with some of the intellectual challenges that some of your athletes have. But if they know that there are supports in place, that might be something where they, are a little bit more motivated to say, you know what, I'll give this a try. I'd love to work with those kids, but I'm not sure about some of those other little issues that may arise or whatever. Are there supports in place? And that's something that maybe that again, just communicating those kinds of things to the volunteer group, or just on your own link through our website, whatever might be helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, any other comments or thoughts? Any other questions? Unfortunately, I don't know what Laura's having problems here, obviously.
No, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so just to summarize quickly, Jerry talked about, his multi-sport group, has needs for volunteers on an ongoing basis, not just through an event, and maybe speak to that, and just in where we're headed with regards to getting volunteers to sign up and be part of a broader database.
Yeah, so Jerry, absolutely recognize that it's an ongoing intake for many organizations and not necessarily a one-time event. So wanting to enhance sort of the exposure of organizations to volunteers. So whether that, and certainly to Scott's point, as we work with different volunteers, building the database and having sort of a standard training program so that we are developing, the fundamental skills of being a good volunteer, which I think is important, but then being able to connect people from that database with volunteer needs. So that would be us, having ongoing dialogue with you. What are your needs? Where are your gaps? Are there priority areas that, again, as we're working with different organizations, I know that you guys work with Red Deer Polytechnic, right, to supplement certain programs, but we might have connections with others that we could go in and maybe help coordinate a presentation where you can get volunteers that come out, but it's working together to look at, what are your priority areas and how can we supplement that and help attract more volunteers to the program, be it through leveraging our database or doing something creative, something different. But I think having a lot of the tools that we have, we can review those and see if, we can use those to help find people for the different programs. Does that answer, Jerry, some of that ongoing need?
Yeah, it does. And as I said, when you weren't able to hear me, that the issues we have because you did volunteer with us, and those are ongoing. And one of the areas that maybe through Central Sport that can be looked at, for example, Red Deer City Soccer. We have an indoor soccer program and an outdoor soccer program, and we have trouble finding coaches. Maybe we can rely on them to help us secure some coaches through their program, or our swim program. We do get coaches from Catalina Swim Club and from the other swim clubs at Masters. So some cooperation in that respect, whereby one sport group might be able to help another one with that has similar needs.
Absolutely. And I think we've seen that already just in terms of bringing groups together. And this may have come up earlier, but I know the last time, that we connected with local sport groups, there was already discussion even around facilities. We have availability for this, and just having some of those connections and understanding each other's, needs, but also how we can help can make a big difference in the community. So that's a great point.
Okay. Any other things that's on this list that looks good, or things that you say, geez, I wish we had more of this or something different? You've just baffled them with your brilliance, Laura. So I think everybody's in support. The one thing I didn't mention, and for those of you who don't know Laura, Laura was our manager of workforce for the 2019 Canada Games, which included the oversight of our complete volunteer program. And the volunteer program within the Canada Games is an amazingly complex and huge undertaking. And we're so fortunate to have Laura after the games with us in the community, who can bring this experience to the table for Central Sport, for you in Central Sport. And we're just really, really excited about where this is going to go, not because really it gives us amazing capacity as a city to host events and to support our clubs. And so we're really excited about the direction that Laura and her group is starting to move along, and we're already ready to, we're ready to hear some of your needs, and we'll start working with those as we can. So with that, Al, do you want to say any parting comments before we wrap up? We're at the end of our agenda. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, but that's okay. Maybe I'll let you say a few things before we close it off.
One comment relative to volunteerism and hosting events that I'd like to emphasize. I've heard a ton about the Parkland Ski Club and hosting of events and how well they've been hosted, and also the Red Deer Pickleball Club, the hosting the Nationals last August in Red Deer. And certainly there's many other examples, and I apologize for mentioning just two. But what Central Sport also is identifying, that we would like to transfer knowledge from local groups like that who've shown a standard of excellence, transfer that knowledge to other groups going forward. And so that connecting and transfer of knowledge is a key role going forward. Who's to know what that will mean in detail? Finally, Scott, I thank the sport groups that participated. Personally, I think we have a challenge to link with more sport groups. I'm disappointed in the sense that I think we need to connect to learn from each other, and we've got to keep pushing on that aspect. But thank you for those that participated, and also the stakeholders from our business community and other community stakeholders. Okay. Thanks again, gang.
Thank you. Yeah, and just a reminder, we're going to do more sessions. We're going to start doing some in person as well as it's getting more safe to do so. We really want to thank for your opportunity. This reminder of our website address, if you haven't been there before, you can email us at any time at info@centralsport.ca. Christina and myself, we're always checking our email on a daily basis and answering questions if you have any. And certainly like us on Twitter and Facebook and follow us. And we'll continue to build this network. I honestly can say that although we have a long way to go, we've the board and the volunteers have done a great amount of work to get us to this point. But we're starting to take off now, and we're excited about how we can support the sport community. But at the same time, it's so important that we hear from you in order for us to do a good job of doing that. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending today. And we'll be in touch. We're going to have this recording. We'll send out to everybody that was on the call registered a link. I'm looking at Christina in the a link to the recording, just in case you want to share it or with any of your colleagues in your organizations or want to grab something again that you may have heard or saw. So, all right. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Christina.
Have a great day.
Awesome
Thanks,
stuff.
guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye now.
Thank you very
Scott,
much.
can you stay on for a second?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. I appreciate the information.
Thank you, Joan.
You're welcome.